It all began as just another writing assignment, a routine series of articles for a widely read Western newspaper. That's what I was expecting, but I couldn't have been more wrong. The story I was about to investigate would never make the front pages. The ink had dried on that story back in 1973. Now the story was merely a controversy, but ultimately, a controversy over life and death.
And here's your assignment.
Abortion?
Abortion. It's not my favorite subject either, but it is an issue.
But what's the issue? A woman has a right to her own body, and the Supreme Court agrees with that.
Well, there are some people out there who think that that Supreme Court decision stinks. They're against abortion. They are rallying behind the pro-life movement.
Pro-life movement?
And I want you to get both sides of this thing, for and against.
Okay, where do I start? Can you tell me what happens in an abortion?
In the first trimester, almost all abortions in the United States are terminated by suction curettage, which is basically a method where the cervix is dilated and a small plastic cannula or tube is placed inside the uterus, and the contents are evacuated by means of the principles of a vacuum cleaner, if you will. After the first trimester, up to 24 weeks or so in gestation, several other methods are used. One is called dilation and extraction, which involves insertion of seaweed sticks called laminaria inside of the cervix, waiting 12 to 18 hours until the cervix has been substantially dilated and opened up, and then removing the contents of the uterus the following day by means of suction and other methods. The other commonly used method of abortion is called saline amniocentesis, and that's used in very late pregnancies up to 24 weeks. That's by installation of a hypertonic salt solution into the uterine cavity and then inducing the patient to go into premature labor and expelling the product of conception usually in 24 to 48 hours. I really believe that this is essential as a matter of population control, as a matter of suppressing poverty, crime, all the other kinds of human problems that we have in our society, that it's essential that we have this.
But when it comes down to having an unwanted child, I would support the abortion.
Have you had an abortion?
Yes, I've had several. I don't know what it would have been like if I had not been able to make that choice to have an abortion. I would have had 3 children now and probably been on welfare.
Are you married?
No, I'm not.
Tell me the span of ages of the women you see.
For pregnancy, we have seen as young as 12 years of age and as old as 54 years of age.
How about the number of minors?
About 33% would be under the age of 18. Probably 90% of those would not have told their parents.
What about the rights of the unborn?
Nowhere in the Constitution is it designated that the unborn has any rights.
What kind of counsel did you have before you had your abortion?
I didn't have any counseling at all. It was between me and my boyfriend.
Why did you decide not to have an abortion?
Because I thought I've got to at least give it life. And if I wasn't ready for a baby right now, I could give it up for adoption to someone who really wanted a child.
Nobody has to get pregnant today if they don't want to. And very seldom is it with a husband and wife where they goofed and they got pregnant. Most of it is in the back seat of a van by teenagers that are unwed in a fit of passion. We're not teaching our children to abstain. I'm a Christian, and I believe that sex is something sacred. It's not something that's spread all over town.
Carl Karcher is the owner of America's largest independent restaurant chain, Carl's Jr. I discovered he still takes time to be involved in causes he believes in. Carl, why are you, as a prominent businessman, involved in such a controversial issue?
I think today, in this great country of ours, businessmen should be more involved and make a commitment to back up the very things that this country was founded on. You know, if they're going to take the life of the unborn, they could take my life as well as yours. I think it's the most offensive thing to Almighty God to see the unborn, that infant, being destroyed by the millions.
The thing is objectively wrong, and we're simply coming to try to stimulate the consciences of people to realize that fact, no matter what the law says.
But Dr. Dobson, I know a lot of Protestant denominations that support abortion.
I know they do, Ann, and I don't thoroughly understand that. I think we've allowed our Catholic brothers to carry this issue far too long. And I think it's time that the evangelical community, and especially the pastors and church leaders in the evangelical community, found their tongue on this issue.
How do you feel about the fact that 7 out of the 9 U.S. Supreme Court justices felt that abortion was a woman's constitutional right?
Being a justice of the Supreme Court doesn't automatically mean that you're infallible. For instance, in the last century, we had an equally erudite group of justices who labored forth and brought a decision which said that black people are not human beings, the Dred Scott decision. It took a civil war to reverse that.
The basis for my opposition springs entirely from a secular, humanist, non-religious point of view, that this organism in the uterus is a human being, it is an ongoing life, and one must not take life unless a life is threatened. I began to change my mind after I had run the world's largest abortion clinic in New York City for a period of 2 years. We ran it from 8 in the morning until midnight every day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We did 120 abortions a day, and we compiled a total of 60,000 abortions in the 19 months that I ran it.
That's interesting.
And with the new technology and the new apparatuses we had for the study of the fetus, I became closer and closer to that person.
Every year since 1973, on January 22nd, the grassroots movement comes to Washington, D.C. to protest the Supreme Court's decision and to petition Congress for a constitutional amendment.
I'm not into religion. I'm not a follower of any religion. I'm out here because I think this is the most extreme example of human rights and civil rights violations in the country today. I used to always be for abortion. I thought abortion was supposed to be one of the great things that ever happened on this planet. I'm from the middle of the liberal community and proud to be from there. If you're going to be for women's rights, you have to be for abortion. I'm for women's rights all the way, and we were going to use abortion to take care of population problems and child abuse. It was supposed to be great. Well, about a year ago, I went down to the library, started thumbing through embryology books, and I didn't find that blob of tissue, that pregnancy tissue that we had kept talking about. I found a developing human being, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Nuts, we're killing babies.
Why are you carrying this sign that says "Stop the Holocaust"?
Because what's taking place right now is effectively the same thing which happened in Nazi Germany. Millions are being slaughtered innocently.
It's unlawful to destroy that egg of the bald eagle, but it's okay to destroy babies.
The Bible teaches us that we shall not kill. We believe in standing up for life, not for death.
Why do young girls like you feel so strongly about this?
Well, because it's an act of murder.
You believe abortion is murder?
Yes.
I'm marching here today because my mother didn't abort me.
Kids are beautiful. If they had abortion when I was born, I wouldn't be here right now.
In the Dred Scott decision, the court found that a slave was chattel. At least it had some value. In the Supreme Court's decision of January 22nd, 1973, an unborn child doesn't have the value of even a blade of grass, where the law can protect a blade of grass from trespassing. An unborn child under that decision has no rights whatsoever and is utterly without value.
Excuse me, is this Dr. Wilkie? Yes. I'm Ann Summers. I'm from the Daily Press. I'm doing a series of articles, and I'd really appreciate your time.
You're from where?
The Daily Press in California. I'm doing a series of articles on abortion. As a medical doctor, I'd like to hear your point of view.
Well, my wife, Barbara.
How do you do? I'm Ann.
Yes, are you? Gee, we're busy right now with the march.
I'll meet you anytime.
Now, the Supreme Court says you can kill this little boy. You don't have to give a single reason, any licensed physician in any of the 50 states.
They can bail out and be born, say, the night before their scheduled execution the next day. Then you cannot kill them if they are born. But if they live in the womb, that's the free fire zone in this nation today.
When the sperm and the ovum complete their joining, fertilization, conception, we have a single cell. Each of us once was that single cell. And contained within the single cell, Anne, that you once were, was contained the totality of everything you are as you sit here. The color of your hair, the size of your shoes, the fact that perhaps when you're 50 you'll get diabetes, All of this was in that single cell. For the scientific fact is this: nothing has been added to the single cell who you once were, nothing but food and oxygen. All you've done since then is grown up.
People have differing opinions as to what exactly is aborted. What's your opinion?
It's philosophical as much as anything, and I don't really choose to get into that aspect of it.
The fetus first implants itself into the wall of the uterus about 9 days following conception. It is at that time that we are able to pick up the earliest chemical signals from that fetus, indicating that it is there and that it is one of us now.
From all the research that is done today, the conclusion is drawn that life begins at the moment of conception.
I don't think that that's an issue. Abortion is a legal option, and I think that's the issue.
You know, it's very interesting to me that if a mother is going to abort a child, she refers to it as her fetus.
Well, I was aborting a fetus. It was something that I had to do, and I really didn't get into the details at that time.
I was thinking about myself more.
But if she's going to keep it, she calls it my baby.
I'm going to bring my baby up as best I can.
I plan on keeping my baby.
You see, abortion has the power to cheapen human life.
Did you feel you had taken a human life?
Uh-huh, that's what I did.
Okay, doctor. A lot of people feel that abortion is a moral issue. Now, are there any moral absolutes or ethical principles upon which you base your opinion?
I'm really not much of a philosopher. I try not to delve into things like that too much.
We try not to make any moral decision or bring ethics into it at all. That's up to the individual.
Do you believe there are moral absolutes?
For each individual, I do. I think there are. I think that it is definitely a moral issue right now, but I think it's something that each and every person has to make their own decision about where you're coming from for your moral aspect.
I feel that way too. I don't believe there are absolutes for everyone.
Isn't abortion really a religious issue?
No, abortion transcends religion or any other narrow interests such as medicine. It is an issue of major public policy in this country, and it is going to have to be resolved by the men and women of this country.
When we had slavery, Jefferson said, "I tremble for my country when I remember that God is just and that his justice will not sleep forever." And those words are carved in the Jefferson Monument in Washington. And I fear there will be a terrible punishment fall upon us because of this desecration of human life.
And just as Abel's blood called out to God from the ground after he'd been killed by Cain, I believe the blood of 1.5 million babies calls out to God from the ground in this country. And I do not believe he'll hold us blameless for what we do with the unborn child. What's at stake here are 1.5 million babies per year.
He could have been one of those abortion statistics.
It constitutes a war on children.
An unborn child doesn't have the value of even a blade of grass.
Who would want to kill a baby you can see?
I knew to get to the honest core of how I felt, I had to digest the moral side and confront the physical. I had to witness an actual abortion. This pregnant woman has chosen to have her baby aborted. Luckily, this clinic is sanitary and affords some precautions many clinics don't.
Can you scoot down to the end of the table? More? Okay, may I have your arm? I'm gonna put a tourniquet around it. It's gonna be a little bit tight, and I'd like for you to take some slow, deep breaths. You're gonna have a nice, pleasant sleep.
I'm going to repeat the pelvic examination that we've done previously now. I'm going to vacuum out the inside of the uterus now. And that's basically all I'm going to do.
Then it's over. The doctor working with quick professionalism because of the waiting list. But I had the feeling it was like sweeping up an accident, or like erasing a mistake. Peggy Kilpatrick was employed at a pathology lab that facilitated abortion clinics. Her job followed the abortions, picking up the POCs.
Now, POC is a product of conception, and it's sort of a name that they've tagged onto it so it gets it out of reality and into a thing rather than a human being or an embryo or a fetus.
When the POCs were brought into the lab, what happened to them?
The embryo was taken and put into a block of wax, and then it would be sliced, and they would make a slide. The first one I ever saw, I picked it up, and it was a baby's hand. It was very tiny, but just a tiny, tiny hand. And I thought I was going to throw up. Then, they check each slide to make sure that there is fetal material, that there has to be parts, hands and feet and intestines and things like this. So that way a doctor would not be accused of doing an abortion on a woman who was not pregnant. And they do this frequently. We were getting a lot of them that were too large, and it was much too dangerous on the mother to have them done, but they went ahead and did them because they were cheaper.
There is nobody who does not have that sensation, that sensitive, that this is a wrong thing. I don't care what they say.
Even if abortion is safe, it seemed to me that serious consideration had to be given to complications that may result in future pregnancies.
Abortion is dangerous to her health. It's dangerous to her life. It is particularly dangerous if she is given the abortion on her first pregnancy. She has twice the chance of miscarriages in life ahead as if she hadn't aborted. In her first 3 months,
this woman's body is all ready to produce a child, and suddenly it's just jerked from her.
She has 10 times the chance of losing her baby in the middle 3 months. She has twice the chance of a baby being born dead.
Frequently, they leave behind pieces which can result in peritonitis, which is a general infection of the entire body. They suction them out again, hoping to clean them out and hoping that they won't bleed to death in the process.
Roughly 5 to 10% of women who abort their first babies will never again bear a child. And how would you like to bear that? As a memory in life, I killed the only baby I ever bore.
The 139th Psalm speaks directly to this issue. Listen to what David said. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body, and you knit them together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. It is amazing to think about. Your workmanship is marvelous, and how well I know it. You were there while I was being formed in utter seclusion. You saw me before I was born, and you scheduled each day of my life before I began to breathe. Every day was recorded in your book.
I had set out with an open mind, really believing in freedom of choice. But I now believe a woman's choice goes beyond abortion, beyond birth control. We're responsible for choosing the circumstances in which a child may be conceived. I now ask myself, did the U.S. Supreme Court settle the abortion issue for all time? Or did they open the door for the real thinking to begin?